Hello, I am Sara Lundeen, and I'll be talking about making and learning from mistakes. Sometimes our bodies bear the marks of the mistakes we make. It could be a paper cut scar, it could be a post-breakup tattoo, or in my case, a painful tan line. Everyone makes mistakes, and everyone needs to be able to learn from them. I will be giving 2 examples of mistakes that I've made and the lessons I learned from them and am still learning. I, like everyone in here, have made mistakes, but these 2 stand out, and also I'm willing to share them with you. As college students, now is the time to be making mistakes, as nothing really bad will happen, except hopefully we're keeping it legal. But I'm sure every single one of you has had some experience in your past that you regret. But rest assured, we will find a way to make a positive of it. Today, we will cover the importance of sunscreen and the dangers of procrastination. In the tropics, I made the mistake of not respecting my skin's need for sunscreen, and I learned a painful lesson. In the summer between my junior and senior year of high school, our science teacher organized a trip to Costa Rica. Now, on our second day there, just our second day, we went kayaking on Lake Arenal by the Arenal volcano. Now, most people were wearing swimsuits because we would get to swim on the other side of the lake. I don't really like swimming though, so I was just in a tank top and leggings. I didn't want to be too hot though, so I rolled up my leggings a bit so that they looked more like capris, and that was the first mistake. The second mistake came from when our sponsors were spraying everybody down with sunscreen. I didn't ask for any on my newly shown shins and my feet. So we're kayaking across this lake, and I can feel the rays of the sun obliterating my skin cells. I could feel the individual cells burning in a way that I've never been conscious of before. But I didn't do anything to help myself. I didn't roll my capris back down. I didn't use sunscreen. So I just dealt with it. By the end of that night, I had a nice pink line across my mid-shin that went all the way down to the top of my toes. And for the rest of the trip, I had to use aloe vera multiple times every single day because my skin was so destroyed. And honestly, the tops of my feet hurt, so when I wore shoes, that was constantly rubbing against each other too. Roughly a week later, it looked like I was wearing pinkish, brownish crew socks. The line was so distinct across my shins, and the color so against my skin tone that it genuinely looked like I was wearing socks. And everyone was making fun of me because it was absolutely ridiculous, and I laughed along because there was no one to blame but myself. Now, from this seemingly silly experience, I learned some serious lessons. The first one is a bit surprising, but I learned to take better care of my skin. Before this, I hadn't really done anything. I didn't have a skincare routine at all. And while I cannot emphasize enough the importance of sunscreen, wear sunscreen when you're going out in the sun for extended periods of time, people. But I also started exfoliating because that was supposed to help get rid of the tan line. But I started doing that on a regular basis. I also started moisturizing on a regular basis, which I had never done before. So I learned to take better care of my health through this experience. I also learned to listen to those who have more experience than me. If I'd listened to the sponsors, the entire situation may not have been avoided, but the line would have been greatly diminished. And also, for all of you, when you go on trips and your older friend says, hey, we should probably put on sunscreen before we go to the beach, just say okay. Just do it. And if your mom says, it's supposed to rain later today, you should bring an umbrella, just bring it. It's better to be safe. Take it from someone who's been very sorry. Moving on from the more fun example, we'll go to a more serious example in my life. I have a bad habit of pushing things off to the last minute, like practicing for my French horn solo. And I haven't fully learned my lesson. My sophomore year of high school, I decided I wanted to do an instrumental solo. So my band director picked out a song for me to play on my French horn. The thing about the French horn is it's a brass instrument, and so you have to play it with your lips. And the song went high at lots of points, so I needed to practice consistently in order to prepare my lips to be able to play high consistently. I did not do that. I pushed off almost all practice until the day before conference competition. And so I was rushing really hard to get the song figured out, to be able to play with my accompanist. And I was pretty confident that night that I would do okay. The next morning when we got to the school, I couldn't even play a scale. I couldn't get notes that I normally could get easily. And so with a sinking sense of dread, I went and I performed for my judge. And after I was done, I sat there with tears in my eyes because I was so disappointed in myself. I knew I could do better, and I knew that the only person at fault was myself. It wasn't until quite a while afterwards that I managed to be upset over what my judge had told me. It's okay. I can't play French horn either. So that was a bit upsetting, and I was like, I can play the French horn. I just put myself in this terrible situation. It's not that I don't have talent, it's just that I shot myself in the foot. So you think I would learn my lesson, right? Not to procrastinate. I did in some areas of my life, like practicing for my French horn solo, and for my vocal solo, and for speech competitions. In other areas, I didn't progress as much as I should. I put off applying for jobs for a very long time. And schoolwork, I push off to the last minute. I can't tell you how many papers I've turned in less than an hour before it was due. So this is where I learned another lesson, that learning from your mistakes is not always an easy, linear process. It can be really difficult to break bad habits. And you make progress, you start seeing the behavior you want to see, and eventually you fall back into the old pattern. You relapse in a way. And I do that all the time. But that's okay, because as long as you keep trying, you will eventually succeed. And in the end, it will be worth it. Today, we discussed 2 examples of mistakes I've made in my life and the lessons I've learned from them. From a sunburn, I learned skincare and humility. From a humiliating performance, I learned the consequences of procrastination and that changing habits can be really difficult. Everyone makes mistakes, but what matters most is that we try to grow because of them and we try to grow out of them. Our bodies can be maps of the mistakes we make. But luckily, we're the only ones who know how to read them. Only we know the stories that our scars tell. As for my terrible tan lines, they have since faded, which I would hope so after several years. But I still know where they are, and I won't ever forget. Thank you.